Hi, I'm Whack.
Hey, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Weekly Orbit, the week ending Friday, July 5th. Happy Independence Day to all the Americans out there from yesterday. Whack, how was your Independence Day, July 4th?
Yeah, I didn't record an episode of Rocket Fuel.
It was
Wow.
good?
No, I had a quiet day with my family and it was a nice day. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah,
And I
well,
watched
that's
some of The
good.
Bear, the new season of The Bear, which is fun. That's a
What's the
really cool
bear
TV
about?
show. It's about this guy who's a chef who like starts a restaurant. It's a really, really good show.
Yeah,
Definitely check
I
it out.
was telling you before, I have this, I've got like PTSD from fireworks, and I don't enjoy them anymore. I used to, and then a few years ago, my neighbors used to blow off fireworks all year round, and like in December or November, blowing stuff up at 2 in the morning, and I have this mental block now, and I try to go out of town and get out of the city, and on July 4th now, and it's terrible because I want to
Don't blame
enjoy
you.
it, but it's just I got a mental block.
That's funny. Well,
Yeah.
I guess there were other kind of fireworks going on yesterday as well, so maybe we can talk about
Yeah, I
those.
know. Well, the markets. So we were talking off air about market corrections, and this looks like we're in the middle of one. ETH right now currently 2,948, so we fell below 3,000. We're down on the week about 12%, which is pretty bad. But hey, let's look at the rest of the altcoins here, and it's pretty ugly. Would this be blood in the streets when you
Oh yeah,
see
definitely.
a coin
Yeah.
down 45% in a week or 19% in a 24
And
period? We're
then
looking at EtherFi right now.
Ether, yeah. So we're going to look at a few staking tokens of like kind of
Yeah.
like rivals to Rocket Pool, right? Like so, EtherFi down 61% in the month,
Yikes.
45% in a week. Like it's been a bad time.
This is
Here's
stake wise.
stake wise, 22% down in one day, and down like 25% in a month, 30% in a week, 30% in 7 days. Stater down 42% in the month, 25%, 26% in 2 weeks, 28% in a week, 19, nearly 20% on the day.
And look
Let's
at
look at
Rocket
Rocket Pool.
Pool.
So
Rocket
27% of
Pool.
the month, 36% on the 2 weeks. That's when we had our pump right 2 weeks ago. And then 24% on the week, 17% on, no, 12%, sorry, on the day, not 17% on the day. So yeah, like it's brutal out there. Like these staking tokens have taken a huge hammering. All of them have like really, really taken a pummeling. ETH, of course, Bitcoin like has this huge overhang right now with like negative sentiment from like Germany dumping and the US dumping and Mount Gox like giving people their Bitcoin for them to dump it. And there was like this little narrative that people were trying to make that it was going to be bullish ETH when people sold from Mount Gox because they some of them would buy ETH and then it would be a Bitcoin localized thing. But of course that didn't work, sadly. But what we have here then is the alts, the further out you go on the risk curve, the
Mm-hmm.
more battering they got. Like there were a bunch of tokens that got 25+% like hits yesterday, like and this morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really tough out there. Like it's been a really, really hard day. So a lot of people are scared, a lot of people are worried, a lot of people are questioning their crypto investments. And then the thing you have to think, right, is like, is this the end of crypto? I don't think so. Of course, like and if it's not the end of crypto, then if we think the price is going to go higher, then it kind of becomes a buying opportunity. But of course, not financial advice, anything like that. But it's pretty tough out there right now, and it's not just Rocket Pool for once. It's like everyone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. I think it's a story about flows. In the end, it's by supply and demand, right? And um, we've talked about before where we have an analysis of even the ETF, BTC ETFs. Um, it's like the average buy is like $14,000, and it was almost all from online
hmm
brokerages, and which means that it's the I think the author of that tweet was, I can't remember who it was, but was basically was saying this is your trad fi degens buying into Bitcoin, right?
yeah,
So it takes some time for these the ETFs to pull in the institutional investors and just general retail So I think, you want a prediction? I just think the summer is going to be kind of like this, low, low flows. We got hopefully the ETFs coming, ETH ETFs coming maybe this week or the next week, and that'll start the ball rolling. But I think we're gonna, hopefully, we'll rally by the fourth quarter of the year, and we'll see. But like we always say, what you put in, you could lose it all. So, but I don't think we're there. I just think that there's a tweet here by DC Investor. Let's take a look. DC says, given this market-wide discount, the first wave of ETF buyers will likely become rich after only a few months of holding it, which in my opinion will prove to be bullish for restarting reflexive momentum in these markets. In the meantime, be patient. And so, DC is looking at this as a buying opportunity, or at least just stay put. And there was another, these bull markets, you see trends, and what normally happens in bull markets, you get several or multiple 20 to 30% corrections. And we're certainly maybe in one of those right now. So I guess one could say from a historical perspective, this is just to be expected. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, like, the bull market chart is full of retracements, right? And like in TradFi, this would be the end of the markets and like doom and gloom, and crypto is
Yeah.
just another Friday.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like the S&P 500 down like 25% or something? Actually, they got those circuit breakers that go off after, is it 10%? 5%? 5%.
Yeah.
Jesus.
5%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that we see this is, crypto cycles, they shake out everyone. Like the bear market shakes out people, like with bearish tendencies, with these pump little like fake rallies. And then the bull markets, if we are in one, of course, people are now saying that it's over. I don't agree with that sentiment, but if we're still in a bull market, then these price dips kind of shake people out, like they scare people out of their positions. And the one thing to remember is, like, if you have a high conviction position that you're in and you are happy in that position, then the best thing to do is just not be reflexive with the price like that. Just stay in your position and don't let anything shake you out if you have conviction. And it's hard. It is really, really hard to do that. Like you can, like, I saw this thing, like, with the such and such person, like, made millions or whatever, and other people trying to copy their trades. And it's really easy to copy other people's trades, but it's really hard to copy other people's conviction. You can't fake that. Like, and you either have that conviction or you don't have that conviction. And if you have the conviction, then you can buy in those instances. You can buy ETH at $80, you can buy ETH at $800. But if you don't have that conviction, then any dip is going to spook you and get you out. And crypto is a cruel market in that sense, because it will whiplash you. Like, you go long, you'll get liquidated. You go short, you'll get liquidated. Like we saw with RPL a couple of weeks ago. And this is one of those situations where you just don't get blown up. Like, stay in your position, don't lose your crypto, and hopefully, like, if you wait out, good things will happen. But it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, on to some kind of important news here from the Lido land. This is a Rocket Pool show, but this, I think, is a segue into some other talk down later in the show about Rocket Pool's decentralization. Former LDL holder files class action lawsuit against Lido DAO for crypto losses. The investor claimed that 64% of Lido tokens are controlled by just a few venture capital firms, which prevents ordinary investors from having any control over decisions. Let's take the Lido price did not like this either. It was down on the week 35%, down on the month 34%. So, when we talk about Rocket Pool, and we always say, oh, it's a permissionless, decentralized staking protocol, and we say it over and over about decentralization, and sometimes we gloss over that. But I think when we see news like this really drives home the point how important it is that a protocol become decentralized as quickly as it can. so
Hmm.
that it doesn't get labeled as a security. It prevents like, well, I shouldn't prevent, but you reduce the likelihood of like class action lawsuits by investors. We always worry about the SEC coming down on a protocol, but it's also private citizens who can file lawsuits too in court and get bogged down in protocol. So yeah, it decentralization, it doesn't matter until it matters, right? We hear this all the time. All I care about is price and stuff, but then stuff like this can be anchors around, a protocol for a long time. It's going to take away resources financially to defend it. You're going to have, in this case, the Lido DAO, they're going to be worried about stuff like this instead of managing the protocol. It's going to cause anxiety. It's going to cause suppression on price of the token. So, do you have any thoughts on this lawsuit and how it relates to Rocket Pool's future and how we're decentralized or more decentralized, I should say?
Yeah, so the first thing to note is that right now the SEC has labeled Lido's ST-ETH and Rocket Pool's R-ETH as securities, and that's part of their lawsuit against Consensus. Um, I think their case against Lido is like stronger than their case against Rocket Pool, and that's not to throw like Lido under the bus or anything. Like the SEC has been acting as a rogue agency in some ways, according to a lot of people, and with changes that are happening in the US right now in the legal sphere, going forward, it's going to be much more difficult to punish even outright securities like XRP, which a lot of people thought was like a security offering. Like the judge said, secondary market sales were not. This week we had ClimaDAO and Ohm, which were literally
Mhm.
like Ponzinomics, and the judge
Yeah.
said that they're commodities, and I was astonished by that. That was truly like mind-boggling ruling for me. So what's happening is, like, for those of you not followed, like over the last week the US Supreme Court has taken a lot of powers away from agencies and it's given them to the courts basically. So it's moving away from the executive branch in the US to the judicial branch, and the idea is that Congress will make stronger laws, for example, and kind of balance that out. Now, in the meantime, what's happening is that these agencies are going to lose a lot of power. So these lawsuits that might come from the agencies might not be as powerful as they might have been a few months ago, as we thought they would be a few months ago. Now, like you said, this is a citizens class action lawsuit that's coming against Lido, and like the LDO token, we in the Rocketbook community have said for a while, right, like that the LDO token is very much controlled by a handful of VC whales, and it's not something that is that I would hold, right? For that reason. And another thing as well is like with the LDO token, there's a lot of supply overhang. Well, actually, it's less so now. There's still like I think 100 million tokens that are waited to vest. So this is one thing that's happened is that LDO price has gone down, but the LDO market cap in that time has actually gone up because so many new tokens have unvested. So with LDO, with Lido, this is bad for them, but this is kind of expected in some ways because of the way it's set up, and they are the biggest staking protocol by far, so they've got a target on their back, right? And like just people pay attention to them in a way that other tokens can kind of get away with it, but this is the legal environment in the US is definitely something that's in big flux right now. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see, what court cases get ruled which way in the coming months. I don't think the agencies are going to have much luck based on some of these rulings that are coming out.
Right. Now, neither of us are lawyers, but we like to play. We can certainly give our opinions. So it just seems that we've got the SEC's been striking out time after time after time after time with a lot of these lawsuits. Ripple, like you just mentioned, Ohm, and what's the
Climate DAO,
Climber DAO,
Climate DAO, and they're also
Climber DAO.
BNB, and they're partially rulings against them in the Coinbase case, and
Yeah, the Coinbase
withdrawing
wallet.
stuff.
Yeah, the
So there's a
consensus
whole
thing, they're saying MetaMask, they're using it as some kind of illegal exchange
broker, yeah.
broker. And they used a similar argument against the Coinbase wallet, and the
And it
judge, that
was
was dismissed. And so And then on top, like you said, the Chevron case, the Supreme Court, the SEC seems that they have a loss record here that's piling up. Plus, the Supreme Court has kind of defanged a lot of the federal agencies now with that Chevron case. And so you do have a fluctuating legal environment in the United States. One could say it's benefiting crypto, or it will benefit crypto in the long run, but we'll see. But I just like, we can move on to the next item, and it's about on-chain voting with Rocket Pool, which, this week we've been trying to encourage everybody to set up their on-chain voting or delegate to folks who want to take your vote and vote on your behalf. And could you take a minute and explain why is this on-chain vote? Because there's other places that do on-chain voting, but why is ours unique, and how will it enhance our governance of the protocol, and maybe be a legal protection against like future lawsuits?
Yeah, so I think, as far as I know, every single on-chain voting token, and there are lots of them,
Hmm.
they some of them have delegated systems, some of them don't have delegated systems. But the way it works is like your number of tokens you have is your voting weight. So it's quite straightforward. Like, for
Hmm.
example, the more RPL you have, the more of a vote you have. With Rocket Pool, however, it's different, right? Like, we don't do it as a pure RPL, one RPL equals one vote system.
Right.
The way we do it is like you have to be a node operator to have your RPL effectively staked.
Hmm.
And then with that RPL staked, then you get voting power. And it's not one RPL to one vote. It's half of the square
Quadratic.
root, so it's quadratic voting. So if you have 1,000 RPL, then you get, no, sorry, not 1,000. If you have 100 RPL, then you get 5 votes basically. So it's like that's just the way the power, it's half of the square root of the number. So like, for example, if you have 100 RPL, you get 5 votes. But if you have 1,000 RPL, which is 10 times more, you're getting approximately like 15 votes, or like 17, something like that. So it's, you have 10 times more RPL, but you're only getting 3 or 4 times more vote power.
Right.
And of course, the bigger the amount, the more that tracks there. So with these special like dynamics in play, that's why the RPL voting is unique in crypto, and why the team spent so long actually making a new voting system from scratch, because it wasn't possible to just go to a company that sells governance and governance software, and you could just plug and play. Like, this is a lot more bespoke, and I think this is a really great way of kind of like aligning incentives in Rocket Pool. So you have to be someone with something at stake in order to, vote. And I think that's really cool.
Right. Does it, so at some point, well, with the idea is to reduce the team's influence on running the protocol, right? Because that's I think one of the Howey tests with the security is like, is there a group of individuals kind of, controlling all the strings here? And our Rocket Pool on-chain voting help us towards the path of less team involvement when it comes to decision making and implementation?
Yeah, so the team already is quite powerless in terms
Hmm.
of Rocket Pool governance. Langers and Dave and formerly Joe were delegate voters, and between them they had like 1,700 votes at the time. Like, Joe had about 1,000, Dave had around 500, Langers had around 250, somewhere around those numbers. And that meant, quorum was at around 7,000, so they had about 20% basically to get to quorum. Now, with other people in the community, like, I before had around 1,000 votes myself, and that put me as a bigger percentage of quorum than others. Oh, I got 298 voting power. I haven't set it up
Yeah,
yet. I'm going to do it today.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
yeah.
you've gone up recently because I think you were down, you were under 200, um,
Yeah, so people
and now
have
you're up to 298.
given me some of their vote, which is nice. But yeah,
So,
I
so
yeah, sorry,
what's the
carry on.
difference here between? So let's look at Valdorf. Valdorf has total vote power 334. His node vote power is 77 or 78. What's the
Yeah.
difference? What does those two numbers mean?
So his node vote power is like what his node, that's how much like his vote is, and then his vote power is how much people have delegated to him. So that's where it comes from.
So,
So for example, I haven't set up my vote yet, so that's why my node vote power is 0, but my vote power is 300 because people have delegated to me so
delegated.
far. So yeah.
So the node vote power is your individual. If like no one delegated to you, your Val's node vote power would be 77.76.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I think that's what it is. Like I said, I haven't actually played around with the system as much as I should have yet. So it's something that
Yeah.
I need to fix. But like Noshua patches, these guys have gotten some really nice amount of votes here, so that's really
Yeah.
cool for them. So it looks like,
Ken.
you know, the era of me and Joe and Val being like, you know, the triumvirate of rocket pool voting is kind of shifting,
Mm,
and I'm happy about that. Like it was way too much responsibility in my hands. So
sure.
yeah, but let me see how much Dave has got. Can you scroll down? Yeah, 500 here. So
Yeah.
I like the team, like, you know, they're one amongst many here in terms of vote power, which is pretty cool. And I think that's how it should be.
Hmm.
I like it. I like the idea, you know, like that they're in terms of RPL holdings, you know, the team's got around a million or 1.5 million RPL, which is
Mm.
around 5 to 7% of RPL that's circulating. They're one amongst many there as well. So you can't say that, you know, there are these people here who have outsized control of the protocol. In Rocket Pool, it just doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
On to Valdorf posted this. In case you're not a node, I think this is for non-smoke. This setup guide Val posted here in the Discord forum is for non-smart node users. So the first thing I thought of was like all nodes. If you're staking in all nodes, which I think about
Yeah.
what 25% of our operators are on all nodes.
Something like that.
About
Yeah.
this is instruction on how you can delegate if you choose to. Thanks Val for putting this together, because I know there's a lot of, especially smaller operators out there using all nodes where, you know, it doesn't make financial sense to spend six, seven
Gas.
hundred dollars on hardware
Oh,
to set up your own node. Like say you only had 8 ETH, right? Yeah, and you want to do a node, it might make sense just to pay all nodes $10 a month and do it that way. So we got a lot of smaller operators, and I think this. I want to post this in the show notes, so if you are one of those all node operators, you could participate in our voting and delegate if you choose to. All right, our last item for the week. You had a fantastic tokenomics Q&A with Val and Samus you put together. I think it ran over an hour and a half, over 470 views so far, which is great. I've gotten through about 3/4 of it. You know, with the holidays, I've been trying to sneak it in. Do you have any takeaways from your long session with Val and Samus, who are one of the mega brains and have just done incredible work on the tokenomics reform or tokenomics rehab? I like that. Was it RPL dot rehab or rocketpool
yeah.
dot
RPL.
rehab?
No, RPL dot
RPL
rehab.
dot
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
RPL dot rehab is a website if you're looking to see a summary of the tokenomics changes. Just as a side, the GMC, I think Schifrin posted a proposal to allocate like $300,000 towards some of our major contributors, from the big guys like Samus and Val, but also smaller contributors who've helped over the last, 6 to 8 months of tokenomics reform. So these people will be compensated at some point for all their hard work.
Hmm.
As I think last week we were talking, you said like Samus and Val, they've been working on this stuff almost every day
Hmm.
since, say November.
Yeah.
So it's great to see. But do you have any takeaways from your interview?
Yeah. So these guys know their shit. Like
They're
they
so
know their
impressive.
they know their proposal inside and out. You know what I mean? Like the the purpose of this episode was, you know, anyone can go and read the tokenomics stuff, but not everyone understood it, or not everyone has the time or the ability to like engage with the ideas deeply. So I scoured like Twitter, Reddit, Discord, like all these different
Mm,
places, and tried to like get questions from people that they still had, right? Because we're coming close to a vote now, so it looks like this idea is going to go to a vote soon. So they wanted to get any questions that people still had done, finished, out of the way, and let's find out where we stand. So with that happening, I got this, and I was like, let's get you guys on. Let's answer all these questions, these last lingering doubts that people might have, or lingering ideas that people might have, and let's do something with it. And we put together this episode, and I absolutely loved this episode, and everything just made so much sense, afterwards. Like all the questions that people had, like I think were answered to a great extent, and these guys really, really like know their proposal inside out, and like have thought about every aspect of it from like every angle they probably can, like you can do. And it's not just Val and Samus, right? Like these guys have got a whole lot of other people like contributing ideas to this. So just like a couple of people that I want to give a shout out to is like Noshua, Scuzzle, Epineph, Long for Wisdom, and a whole bunch of other people as well. But like those guys are all like the core contributors, and they've got a certain allocation of GMC funding for this. Then there's like other people who kind of like helped out. They'll get a certain allocation as well. And then there's like future work that'll go on. Then some of those people will get multiple rounds of funding, basically. So, the GMC has valued this as a very, very important topic, and we really like boosted this. This wasn't the only tokenomics episode that came out this week. There was also another tokenomics episode with Evan, IB1 gymnast, who kind of had a different proposal for how rocket pools should go ahead. Samus was on that episode as well, like kind of rebutting some of those ideas and kind of providing critiques and support for those ideas. I think that was a really good episode as well, because it kind of lets you understand like where rocket pool is now, and how there's different paths of going forwards, and the path that these guys are choosing, Val and Samus, I think that's the path that has the majority of the community support, has the majority of like team engagement, has the majority of like the momentum, basically. And it looks like that is what we're going to be voting on, so it's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. One thing I can follow along with these mega brains, but what is impressive, where I stop is where they can project out these edge cases. So I might be able to say, well, if A happened, then B. They're down like, if Y happens, then Z. They're like, so they can think of like, well, what about this scenario that is unlikely but could happen, and what happens in that situation? And that's where I think like that's the leap of intellectual thought where I can't get there, and that's why I have to rely on these guys like Samus and Val and others who can
Get
project
there.
that out.
We can get there with like people explaining it to us, and like
Yeah, yeah.
kind
Oh
of
no, that's what I
showing us
mean.
the
Yeah.
path. Yeah. But getting
Right.
there
I
on your
can't come up
own
with it on
is
my own. Like
yeah.
they'll think of, because they're scouring what could happen. Because most of the time, 99% of the time, things run as they're supposed to. But then what happens in that edge case, that black swan event, and they have to map in and strategize about stuff like that. And they do a great job of projecting out, and then trying to make a protocol that is as strong as possible. And but anyways, I thought it was a great episode. If you haven't listened to it yet, please do. And you'll probably learn a lot like I did. And Wack, you did a great job of moderating it with
Thank
a lot
you.
of good questions. So yeah, definitely tune in. I'll put in the show notes for everyone to watch if you haven't. Do you have any wins for this week?
I've got two wins for the week. So one is I finally got Val on an episode of Rocket Fuel, which
Yeah.
is
I was
something
curious
that
if he's going to show his face or not, which he didn't. He
no.
remains anonymous.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the episode that I want to make with Val. The one that I want to make with Val is like learn about Val's like life story, and like figure out how, like a launchpad episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The fact that
you're not gonna get there.
that's very unlikely to happen, but I'm holding out hope still that'll happen. So that was a win. That was a win for the week for me. Like I've talked to Val a
Yeah,
couple of times. Like mostly it's like through DMs, but like we've
yeah.
been on calls together and stuff. But it was nice to him actually be on an episode of Rocket Fuel, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The second win is I think I've hit my crypto target. So I'm very close to the point where I'm not accumulating any more crypto. And I'm at that point where I've got everything in my safe. I've got it all locked up. I'm not doing any DeFi stuff. I'm not doing anything at all. It's just waiting now. And then that's it. So it's a long time coming.
Congratulations.
And well, let's see if I can stop buying more going forward. One of the things that changed as well is I asked the GMC for my next grant, if they approve it, to be paid out in LUSD instead of being paid out in RPL. So, yeah, That's going to be discussion. So people are
Yeah.
going to be like, a guy who promotes a rocket pool like doesn't want to get paid in RPL. What's going on over here? But I've got 6 times more RPL than I ever thought I ever would have. So
Right.
I think it's time to say enough's enough. So
You're
I
the
am one of those
bull
few.
of all bulls, the
I'm
RPL
one of
bull.
I am one of the few people in the world now who can say I have enough RPL.
Oh, it goes back to Marceau's days where I
Yeah,
can, yeah,
I
right.
now have enough RPL.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
My
those
win
are my
for the
wins for the
week.
week.
Okay, my win is just, the holiday, Independence Day. I want to thank the United Kingdom for giving the most Independence Days to the most countries in the world. And
61, I
United States,
think.
is it 61?
I
Yeah.
think there's one
Did
every
it?
6 days.
There might be a couple more. I mean, there's still a couple like Caribbean islands that are
Yeah,
kind of, you know, still part of the British, I won't call
Empire.
it the old empire,
Yeah,
who might at some point break away. But yeah, happy Independence Day to all those out there from the United States or any other 60 countries that were once under British rule. Wack, I think you were originally from the UK, weren't you?
born and
Right.
raised. Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, but that's my win, and well, hopefully we'll have a what I wanted to remind viewers is you've got speaking of traveling in the UK, you'll be traveling this next month, and
Hmm.
so if you Rocket Fuel, I think you mentioned you're going to have a few less episodes than normal, and we'll schedule the weekly orbit when we can to go around your traveling schedule. But
Yep.
what can we expect this next few weeks from Rocket Fuel?
So from Rocket Fuel, I think I'm going to go down to 3 episodes per week
Mm.
for the next month, for the next 4 weeks. And
Mm.
I'm not exactly sure if I'll be able to keep that cadence. I'm hoping that I will. It might be that, some episodes from during the week get moved to the weekend, something like that. But I'm hoping that I can make at least 12 episodes over the next month instead of the usual 20. That's kind of like a goal that I have. I might be able to hit it, I might not be able to hit it once I get on the ground. It depends on how the internet is, because the first part of my trip, I'm going to be in Egypt. I'm not going to be in the UK. So it's Egypt for 2 weeks and the UK for 2 weeks. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll be trying to get episodes out with the weekly orbit. I really hope that that we can make time. Like maybe
Yeah.
we'll need a little bit of flexibility. We might need to record on the Saturday instead of recording on the Thursday or Friday like we normally do. But
Yeah.
I think it'll be possible that we can still record episodes.
Yeah, it's tough
Yeah.
when you're traveling because it's not just okay. I need to reserve 45 minutes of time or an hour to do this. It's also you got to pay attention to all the news. But when you're traveling, especially in your case, you got the family, and you're kind of running around with your head cut off half the time. With traveling with kids. That's the hard part. Not only finding time to record, but you have to prep and you have to read the
Mhm.
news, and you gotta understand what's been going on, whether it's the last day or last week. So that's the challenge. It's just
I
not about
I I
finding a
think
quiet moment.
I worked out once that I consume around 50 hours of crypto content a week, whether that's on Discord, Reddit, podcasts. It's a full-time job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
educating myself. So there's a
Right.
whole
Yes, because
lot
there's
that
post
goes.
production. You gotta edit and do all kinds of stuff and upload. So, well, have
There's a
a
lot.
wonderful trip. I believe
Thank
you're
you.
leaving tomorrow
Yep.
to Egypt and UK. Listeners, thanks for tuning in and listening and watching. And we will see you next week. And Whack will be in a undisclosed location what he does. So take care, Whack, and safe travels.
See you. Thank you so much, Pat. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.